evening and welcome to the May 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Milton Select Board. Before we begin, please join us as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. Before we begin, we have some sad news that came to us last week. Alexander Whiteside, who was a pivotal member of our civic life here in town for many decades, passed away. Mr. Whiteside was a graduate of Harvard College and Fordham Law School. He had received his Master of Laws degree at Boston University. He was a longtime town meeting member here in town. He was raised in Milton. He lived here for more than 55 years. And he was a member of the planning board for more than 30 years and a leading member of the planning board, having served as chair on many occasions. And so it is a great loss for the town, and our sympathies go out to his family. And if we could all just take a moment of silence to remember and think about Alexander Whiteside. Thank you for that. Item 3 is public comment. Do we have anyone here for? We do. We have someone here for public comment. So if you could come up and put your name and address on the list, so we have the record. And public comment is governed by one of our policies and procedures, and we allow 15 minutes. And, 3 minutes a person. 15 minutes.
Don't worry about that.
3 minutes a person, and if you could just address the chair and go right ahead.
Lori Conley, 43 Century Lane, Warrant Committee member. Tonight, at Citizen Speak, I would like to raise the issue of the construction of the new school in Milton. As a current member of the Warrant Committee, I have spent a considerable amount of personal time researching this issue, from state and federal approvals, financing, and walking the land where we intend to build the school in the Lamb Woods. I'm very in tune with the issues based on my experience on the Warrant Committee, listening to all of the various boards and committees voicing their opinions on the topic. I'm here tonight with an alternative proposal similar to the Fontbonne Academy property that you previously pursued. There is a what was that? There is a 7-acre parcel for sale on Upper Blue Hill Ave for $2,950,000. If we call it $3 million, it is 1/3 the price of Fontbonne. I do not know if anyone here or if anyone on the school building committee is already aware of it recently being offered for sale, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. As I know, the school building committee pivoted when the Fontbonne property was made available. With regard to Fontbonne, the acreage was less and had a building to contend with for the price of $9 million. This does not have a building to contend with. It's the magic number for the amount of acreage that you want to build on for 1/3 of the price. It is 1.5 miles from the Lamb Woods and seems to me like it would be a much quicker and easier project than having to get the state and federal agencies to approve. That would save time and be a more expedient way to solve for the critical overcrowding that we have heard about for years. This would be a more fiscally responsible alternative to the potential legal issues that would hold up the Lamb Woods construction. We have a critical need for space in the schools that was not addressed in this past budget cycle. Please seriously consider this alternative before it's too late and the land is purchased by a developer for a high-density 40B project. I look forward to working with you to find solutions to our current overcrowding issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Connolly.
Thank you. We have a couple online as well.
Okay. I will just say, we don't usually engage in dialogue, but I will tell you that just came to the attention of the school building committee, so I imagine there'll be, some action on that.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So John David Corey has raised his hand on Zoom.
All right, if we could promote Mr. Corey, is that what we'll do? And if you could just state your name and address, and then go ahead.
John David Corey, 1452 Canton Avenue. Thank you for taking the public comment. You can hear me okay?
You're coming in loud and clear, John.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Growing up in Milton, I have fond memories of walking, bicycling, and jogging along our shade-covered streets. But these activities are unheard of today, as the town continues to be under siege with high volume, high-speed cut-through traffic. This is not my neighborhood's issue, but it's a town-wide ailment that I've brought up many times, and it continues to erode our quality of life, causing life safety concerns and generally degrading our experience living here. I repeat an earlier call, now is the time to call for action. While there are many reasons for the change in traffic patterns, as I've mentioned before, the most obvious one is Waze, always looking to save a few shortcuts, a few minutes off a commute, and we need to start to claw back our streets and build resistance into the road system. The only way to get the streets back is to slow the cars down. Eventually, Waze will keep people on the highway versus cutting through our neighborhoods. And I mentioned in the past to other select board members that we all know that the cars jump off on 138, go all the way across Milton, all the way through to get onto the expressway versus staying on 95 and then going up through Braintree to save a few precious minutes. Even if we can just add a few minutes of resistance to our crosstown traffic, we will abate this aggressive driving in the town. We need a renewed commitment from this select board. Many members have changed, and I want them to know that we need to let no opportunity go unturned. Immediately put into action measures, even temporary, to slow vehicles. We can no longer accept no for regulatory excuses as an answer. We have new allocated funds from town meeting, and that should be immediately put to use for a part-time traffic engineer, which I do think is in the works. And we should put in 3- and 4-way stop signs, traffic islands, raised intersections, special emphasis crosswalks, pedestrian delineators, bump outs, chicanes, bicycle facilities, shade trees, all the above. That's what we're going to pick, D, all the above. These measures are being dispatched in surrounding communities. You go through Cambridge and parts of Canton, and they have all these roads that have friction and slow the cars down. The town has put in some of these on Governor's Road, the speed humps, Harlan Avenue, the speed humps, stop signs on Highland. There's some temporary traffic islands on Upper Canton Avenue that are just installed. These are all very helpful, but we need a renewed commitment from this select board to push this through. The Traffic Commission is meeting monthly now, which is a big accomplishment, and I think they're going to have a meeting in June. But we need to have that commission give a report every month to this select board so the public knows what's going on. No reasonable request should be off the table. And I also think that as part of a standing monthly meeting, we should be requesting the DOT to come to face the residents on conditions on Blue Hill Avenue, Blue Hill Parkway, Randolph Avenue, and Granite Ave. Even if they don't come, I think we should do a standing item on the agenda that says meeting for the DOT, and if there's nobody there, then the public knows that no one showed. Lastly, I'd just like to say that the high-speed traffic has very much affected me in my neighborhood of Upper Canton Avenue, but hopefully, with more measures to slow the traffic, we can claw back safety and the quality of life that we all deserve. So I know I've talked up many times. I just wanted to remind the commission, I got a renewed call to action. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Corey. And do we have someone else?
Pete Jackson has raised his hand on Zoom, so I'll promote him now.
Mr. Jackson? What's that?
Okay, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Pete.
Okay, thanks. Good evening, Peter Jackson, Capon Street. Although the letter wasn't addressed directly to you, my guess is that you're aware of the Attorney General's office findings regarding the open meeting law violations related to the school building committee. They found that all the school building committee meetings related to site selection for the proposed new school violated the open meeting laws. The idealistic me would expect to see the entire process thrown out and started over, but I don't expect that will happen. What I'd like to see would be that the select board and town administration to foster a town-wide commitment to a higher level of openness and transparency in town government. Without transparency, there can be no trust. Without trust, there cannot be good government. I would like to say that the posting of the select board meeting packets is a great step that I know has helped me and others tremendously. Rather than making specific suggestions tonight, I will follow up by writing up some of the ideas about how to improve transparency and better communication within town government. And I hope that this will be a positive effort that that helps all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Do you have anyone else?
Nobody else has raised their hand online.
Great. Anyone else from the audience? No? All right. Item 4. Before we go to item 4, just because we have, this is our first real public meeting, televised meeting with a new group. The only thing I would ask is to try to hew as much as we can to our policies and to the procedure. We're going to, you know, I like to have free-flowing discussions, but to the extent that we can wait to be recognized and not interrupt each other and not jump in and try to just wait to be recognized, that'll make my role, which I view as really as traffic cop, a little easier. So if people follow the rules, then the role of the traffic cop's a little bit easier. So that's the only thing I would ask as we move forward.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
let's do intros.
I'm sorry?
Let's do introductions.
Do you want to do introductions?
Do you want to? You don't want to do them anymore?
If you want to, we didn't in the past.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
But it's really at the pleasure of the board. If we wanted
I'm
intro
fine.
at the beginning of the night, we didn't do it in the past because we used to have name tags here, but we don't have the name tags, so perhaps we should. But
Don't worry about it. I only brought it up because you didn't mention it. Normally,
yeah,
it is
no,
mentioned.
it's just, it wasn't our practice before COVID, so it's really the pleasure of the board. We can introduce. Why don't we do it tonight, and then maybe we'll have the name tags. So I'm Mike Zulis, I'm the chair of the board this year, and we can do it alphabetically. Why don't we do it alphabetically? Yeah. You're next.
Erin Bradley, vice chair of the board.
Roxanne Musto, secretary.
Ben Zoll, member.
Richard Wells.
sorry, Jesus.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Richard Wells,
all
no worries.
I never think I'm
No
first
worries.
alphabetically.
I've been here for a while, so.
Yeah. And then, so we can do that every night if we wish, or we can go with the nameplates.
That's fine, that's
All right. Item 4, discussion approval. It's really a presentation. At our last public meeting, we approved a citation for the amateur gardeners of Milton for all of their many decades of service to the town of Milton. And we have with us tonight Jean Gibbons and Ginny Corcoran from the amateur gardeners. And so if they want to join us for a moment, we have the citation with us. I don't know if you want to say a few words or come up to the front. You don't have to if you don't want to, but you're welcome to.
Well, we just wanted to,
Hey, why don't you come up and come up to the microphone and introduce yourself and.
Thank you. I'm Jeannie Gibbs. I'm the current president of the Amateur Gardeners of Milton, and we greatly appreciate this recognition from the Select Board. We appreciate it very much. We, unfortunately, as you know, we're dissolving, and we have been here for 70 years, and we've enjoyed our commitment and work with the town, and we've maintained many areas of the town, and we have spent the past year ensuring that our dissolution is not problematic, and we've notified the Select Board, the DPW, and other people of some of the things that we do. But we really do appreciate the recognition of it because I've been a member for 20 years, but as I said, it goes back 70 years. So there's been a huge commitment to the beautification of the town, the environment, and a lot of it has been some hard labor. We take care of Town Hall, the front of Town Hall, and there's also two other members here, Peggy O'Sullivan and Carolyn Burke. So again, we just appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
Comments or questions?
Why don't we bring them up?
Yeah,
Let's bring them all
absolutely.
up,
If
please.
they'd like to come up?
Come on up, please. We're giving out $100 bills tonight to the,
I know,
only to the,
I know,
only to the
yeah.
Hampton Commons Club. Come on up.
All right.
There's actually 40 of us.
Oh,
Wow.
that's
And
fantastic.
unfortunately, it's a sign of the times, but recruiting people mostly to take a leadership role has been the issue.
Yeah.
A lot of people will say, yes, I'll do this, I'll do that, but they won't be trained. So I've been the president for a very long time.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at, and it's unfortunate, but we're not the only club to be like this. But again, we really do appreciate you taking the time out of your meeting and recognizing us.
Comments or questions from the members? Ms. Musto.
I just wanted to thank them again for 70 years. That's pretty remarkable for all that you've done for the town. So
Thank you.
really thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Mr. Wells.
I just want to say thank you, both, in two terms, both from a personal point during my 3+ decades with the police department. Every year, you brought beautiful wreaths front of the police station. We never had to ask, they were there. And that dates back to even to when my dad was chief and to Chief Murren, going back into the 80s and the 90s. And all the things, you were sustainable before the word was sustainable was even used in this town. And your selflessness in giving back each and every year in a way that most people would not even realize or know about. And I just want to say, at least for me, not just being on this board and as a citizen, but especially one of the benefactors that you took care of every single year to beautify. I just want to thank you, say thank you very
And
much for
that
all
is
that you
one
did.
particular issue that we feel badly about that we can't maintain. That was a tradition every single year. One of the things we did do at the gazebo is we used to put the garland all around.
I
So
remember.
we did purchase some faux garland and some containers, and the DPW is going to store them for us. And at least 2 of our members are going to go up this year and make sure that they're put on correctly.
Ms. Bradley.
That might be, I'm just asking to be recognized, that might be a wonderful community service hour project for our high school students to do, to take on, is to put up the garland and wreaths. I'm sure we can purchase some wreaths that, unfortunately, to reuse them would have to be artificial, but we could probably figure something out for a community service project for some of our high school students. Just real quick, as somebody who has 0 green thumbs, my grandfather was a gardener, and my great-grandfather was actually the gardener of a very large Scottish estate. I did not get any of those genes and can kill anything except for a succulent. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done. And let's see if we can make sure that we connect our high school folks with y'all to make sure that that continues so that you don't have to worry about that not happening, okay?
And that was, we had 2 fundraisers a year, and one of them was the plant sale that we had every May.
Geraniums.
And the other one was, we raffled off, the widow would have their house decorated by us for Christmas. That was a very, very well-received raffle, or I should say sale. It was an opportunity. It was a decorating opportunity, actually. It was not a raffle. So those are the funds that we used for the beautification around the town, and that was how we paid for the wreaths. We gave 3 $1,000 scholarships to Milton High School students every year, and we hope we did it this year. We have probably enough money left to continue for the year after. But we always asked the guidance counselor, and they were very, very good about it, to select seniors that were going into an academic setting that would support our mission, which was the environment, horticulture. And Scott Devlin at the high school has been just terrific with that. Last year, one of the young men was going to UMaine for forestry. So we always enjoyed doing that. It was great.
Jeannie, before I read the citation, I will add, on a personal note, I think it was 2 years ago when you were having your sale, you had a raffle, and you had these two beautiful pewter planters.
And you won.
And my now 10-year-old, she convinced me to put her name in, and we put her name in, and that bailed me out for Mother's Day.
I
2
sold
years
you
ago.
the ticket.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
I did,
That's right,
yes.
That's
And-
right.
And
that's
those
right.
were extremely expensive. There's one of our members that would donate those. They were worth several $100s.
They're still in our living room. They're beautiful. They're beautiful.
They're from
So-
Deruta, Italy.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember. So,
So-
so I have a special connection to for at least saving me for 1 year for Mother's Day. So the citation that we voted on a few weeks ago at our meeting reads, official citation, be it known that the Milton Select Board hereby extends its appreciation to the Amateur Gardeners Club in recognition of your dedicated service to promoting civic beautification within the town of Milton for over 70 years. Your commitment to enhancing our community will always be remembered and appreciated. Be it further known that the Milton Select Board extends its best wishes for continued prosperity and success, and that the citation be signed by the Select Board on this 23rd day of May 2023. So thank you very much to all of you.
We wanted to give you a bottle of wine, but they don't allow liquor on the council on aging building. So we had, just pretend we did do that, okay?
All right. Item 5, public hearing, application of Cellco Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless for small cell facility installations on Canton Avenue. This is a public hearing. We have a procedure for public hearings that requires us to give public notice, which I presume has been completed, and the public notice being publicized in the media, making available the information related to this hearing, and giving all persons an opportunity to be heard in accordance with our policy. And that's what we're intending to do now. And so I will declare the public meeting open, and we will now ask, given our procedures, a brief presentation from the applicant, which is, again, Cellco Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless for small wireless facility installations on Canton Ave. And I see someone here, and I assume that's our presenter.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Select Board. My name is Sean Conway. I'm here representing Verizon Wireless, Cellco Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless. We're here for an application to install 2 small cell wireless facilities on existing utility poles on Canton Avenue. It's pole 379 and pole 38, where we will attach an antenna to each pole, as well as 2 radio head devices, a diplexer, and a meter on each location. The Milton SC10 on pole 379, the antenna will go at the top of the pole. Milton SC11, the antenna will go in the communication space a little lower down on the pole. That's done so because of the Eversource restrictions and guidelines that we have to look at while we're attaching to a pole that's owned by Eversource. And so, yeah, so these 2 locations were selected due to bring some capacity into the area of the high school, as well as the neighborhood that's in that area. We've received several complaints from members of that neighborhood. So these 2 small cells should come in and be able to handle some coverage in that neighborhood area, as well as bring some capacity into the high school area. Obviously, as you guys know, high school students are always using their phones, and I think it gets busy in the high school area. That's all I have for presentation. Open it to any questions or anything from.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. First,
Sure.
we'll go to questions or comments from the public. I don't see anyone here, so the question is, do we have anyone appearing by
Zoom?
Zoom? Thank you. I was trying to decide whether I should say by internet or by Zoom. By Zoom, thank you. Do we have any comments or questions by anyone appearing by Zoom?
Nobody has raised their hand. as
All right,
yet.
let's give everyone a moment. If anyone appearing on Zoom has any comments or questions for Mr. Conway on the proposed small wireless facility installations on Canton Avenue. Going once, going twice? No one?
Nobody.
All right. Comments or questions from the Select Board? Ms.
Go
Musto.
ahead, Roxanne.
I have a quick question. I'm wondering if you could show on a shared screen so people that might be watching what this is going to look like on Canton Ave, like what we have now. Do you have like a side-by-side of what we have now?
There was a drawing that was included in the application for each location.
I'm just thinking for people that might be at home or
Are
watching
you
it
guys
if
able
they
to bring
wanted
up the
to see it.
application and share
Yeah, I
it?
can bring it up.
I'm not in
Okay.
the Zoom.
Give me a moment.
Thank you.
Most people not even realize they're there. They'll drive right by.
Right.
They'll
They
drive
look
right
very
by.
similar to a transformer, the
Yeah.
antenna does, and the equipment that's low on the pole would look like stuff you'd see out there, telco boxes, cable boxes.
Because sometimes people, they'll see something new and they don't know what it is.
Sure.
If it's new, so might just want to see if you can just show it. And my other question is, when would these be going up?
Assuming we were approved, these would be in construction this summer. And yeah, the sooner we can get them up, the better. Obviously, we'd like to get them up before the next school year.
Yeah.
Is this the
That is
the diagram that you were looking for?
Yep, that would be the location that has the antenna up top, so you'll see that the pole is at the top of the pole. It just shows the drawing there. You have to bring it down a little bit further. So down lower, you'll see the meter is the lowest piece of equipment that's on the, you've seen those meters everywhere, the side of your house, they're out there on poles already. The converter that converts our electricity up to the two radio heads that are there just above that. They sit side by side on the pole in a tan bracket. They sit in that, and then the diplexer and cables will run up the pole in a U-guard to the antenna at the top of the pole, and the antenna is painted a gray. It comes out of the box in a gray color.
And how far is it on top of the pole? How big is the antenna?
It is, let me give you the exact measurements here.
Just a ballpark, is it like a couple of feet or?
Yeah, it sits right on the top of the pole. We have a small bracket that would go above the top of the pole, and then it would be attached. Actually, in this one, we do have a extension for 4 feet.
Okay.
And then just above that would be the small bracket that I was talking about, and the antenna attaches to that.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Wells?
So, fortunately, I know more about interoperability and wireless communications than I ever wanted to from a prior role I had. So I'm going to put this in lay terms for the residents of the town that live in this area. So anyone who lives within the radius, particularly the Ewan parents, anyone who uses Ewan Rink, anyone around, like you said, the high school, Canton and the Parkway, that is what you would refer to as a hole. It is a negative hole in the town where you commonly drop calls. The purpose of doing this is to eliminate that.
To fill in the hole,
And
correct?
we've done that in prior locations within the town in the past.
Mhm.
Yes, we have.
Yes.
That's it. That's all. Thank you. Sooner the better.
Mr. Zoll?
I'm assuming, but I want to make sure that I'm clear about this, that this would only be patching the hole for Verizon customers.
Correct. This is a Verizon install. Only our network will benefit from this, correct?
My suspicion is you're going to get a lot of new high school customers, because I have AT&T and it's terrible service there, so. My kids are going to be asking.
It's all about infrastructure. Whoever
Yeah.
has the most
Yeah.
infrastructure
Yeah.
has the best.
I'm always going to calls on that one.
Anything else, comments or questions? Two things from me. Number one, Mr. Conway, do you know if the abutters have been contacted? We did have the list of the abutters.
They were, yep, they were notified.
Okay. And did you hear anything back from the abutters?
We did not, Can I ask if Derek Mayhew, he's our site acquisition consultant. Derek, are you on the Zoom?
He is, I can promote him if that's.
Yeah, please do.
I'll just confirm that Derek didn't receive anything back from the abutters.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
How are you? So no, we haven't heard anything back from any of the abutters. The notices went out about 10 days ago, I want to say, and we had no response.
Ms. Bradley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious to make sure that you actually sent notices to all the people that were actual abutters. In the past, there's been an issue with the folks that are actually abutting a new structure or anything new, not actually getting notices. So I just want to confirm with you that you sent it to the folks that actually abut this area that you're discussing this evening.
Yes, correct. We got a list, and I forget the woman at the town of Milton that sent it over to me, her name.
Perfect.
But it was a list of all abutters within 300 feet.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Other comments or questions?
Are we voting on this, Mr. Chair? No.
Yes,
Oh,
we are.
okay.
After we close the public
You
hearing,
want
we
to
will
close?
vote on it.
I'll make a motion to close.
Well, I
the
just have one more
okay, go
thing,
ahead.
if we could just, the second question I have, Mr. Conway, is about pole attachments, and I understand these are Eversource poles, not Verizon poles.
They're Eversource, they're jointly owned by Eversource and Verizon. This one pole that we were just looking at with the antenna up top was an Eversource pole, but because Verizon needs to bring us facilities to it, they'll be buying into the pole, so it will be a jointly owned pole as well.
And my question is about pole attachments. Do you have, is this going to, is there going to be additional space available on the
He's
poles?
very parochial in his questions.
Well, this is, yes. Is there going to be additional space available for town facilities on the poles? Do you know that?
On this pole, I couldn't speak to what Eversource would do with the, I mean, do you
Oh, no, I
guys-
understand that. I just, do you happen to know whether there is remaining space for additional pole attachments on these poles?
These poles are very busy down that street. There certainly is some space. I don't know what type of attachment you're talking about, because like with our antennas and our equipment, we need certain spacing. I know when you're putting a cable up there, you don't need all the spacing that we need. You can kind of just plug
I'm
it into
thinking
that
about
communication
fiber.
space.
I'm thinking about fiber for broadband.
So yeah, there would be space for a cable, a fiber cable to go through there.
Great.
He
Other
was
com-
wondering if you were going to ask if you're going to put a dish on there.
No, no.
That's what he was asking.
Just a fiber cable. Other comments or questions? All right. And any other hands raised in the group?
So Stan Yusevich,
Stan Yusevich is also with us. He's Verizon Wireless State Government Affairs.
he has raised his hand.
Oh, please, yeah, please promote him. Is he on?
I lost him. Hold on. Here he is.
He's on Canton Ave near Indian Spring trying to call, and he just can't get through.
Hello?
Mr. Yusevich?
Oh, thank you. Just to answer your question more directly in terms of available space for municipal cable, there is. Typically, as the former chief had mentioned, there is municipal space. Usually it's occupied by fire alarm, but it is available for municipalities, and they can be licensed for free, essentially, through our licensing department. So if that is the request of the town, I'll certainly take that up and advance it.
Thank you, Mr. Yusevich. My guess is that it will be a request of the town, given the fact that the town
Okay.
has appropriated funding to move forward with a new INET throughout town. And so we have the funding, and now we've approved the design. We're at the design phase, and then we'll proceed after that to construction. So
The key is to make sure that you're licensed, you're part of the database, so that we don't get into a situation where, for instance, there might be a double pole that we don't know that you're on, you're holding other people up. So just want to make sure that the protocol is followed and any questions that you might have are answered in advance.
Very helpful. We're getting a little far afield of this agenda item, but that's very helpful.
Understandable.
Yeah. Anything else from members of the public or members of the board? With that, I'll entertain a motion to close the public
Mr. Chair, I'll
hearing.
make a motion to close the public
Is there a
hearing.
second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. With that, I'll entertain a motion to
Mr.
approve.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the application of Succo Partnership DVA Verizon Wireless for small wireless facility installations on Canton Avenue, poles 3-79 and 3-8.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Chair.
Conway,
Members of
thank you,
the
Mr.
Select Board.
Yusevich,
Thank you.
and thank you, Mr., I don't remember the other fellow's name,
Mayhew.
Mr. Mayhew. All right, items.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 6 is update discussion of multifamily zoning requirements for MBTA communities. Is this you, Mr. Milano, or Mr. Zawinski?
Mr. Zawinski is joining us as we speak.
All right.
I'll turn over the floor to him once
All
he's
right.
settled.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Tim.
So thank you for having me. Tim Zerwinski, Director of Planning and Community Development. I have some slides. It is a stripped-down version of a presentation I gave at a public forum last week. If you want all of the juicy details, that forum was recorded, and that recording has been posted on the MBTA Communities page on the Planning and Community Development website. The material tonight hopefully takes advantage of your familiarity with the legislation. We're going to go like really straight into some weeds here because that's kind of where we are in the process of trying to develop the zoning. As you're hopefully aware, Milton is classified as a rapid transit community. There are 3 tranches of MBTA communities: rapid transit, commuter rail, and adjacent communities. And they each have different deadlines for when they're obligated to pass compliant zoning. Rapid transit communities are up first. Our deadline is December 31, 2023, so the end of this year. So we are right in the thick of trying to come up with some compliant districts that meet all of the guidelines and all of the parameters that the state has set up. So I'm going to try to run through these slides as quickly as I can. If you have any questions whatsoever, general, specific, or otherwise, very happy to address anything that's sort of not presented in the material. So I am going to share my screen, and can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, so just as a reminder to everyone, these are some of the parameters that we're responsible for hitting under the MBTA communities legislation, which again, very briefly, is a state law that was passed that requires towns with MBTA service to develop a by right multifamily zoning district of a reasonable size within half a mile of transit. So there's a certain amount of developable area in a half a mile of transit in the town of Milton. The analogy that I use, or the comparison that I use, is City of Newton has the D line and a couple commuter rail stops, and those are squarely in the center of the city. So the half mile radius around each of those stations is available to create a zoning district. Our developable area is reduced by virtue of the fact that our trolley tracks are effectively on the border of town. So a lot of that radius is either in the reservation or in the city of Boston. The way that the DHCD guidelines have been set up is they acknowledge this fact and they correct for it by allowing us to locate as much as half of our zoning district outside of that transit area. And I'm going to use that term transit area to refer to the half mile radius around our 4 Mattapan trolley stations plus Mattapan Station, which captures a part of town. So we can split the district half and half between the transit area and literally anywhere else in town. We can use multiple sub-districts with different sizes, different locations, different dimensional requirements. The only stipulations there is that half of our district has to be contiguous, so it can't be a patchwork of little sub-districts. And each sub-district has to be at least 5 acres, so you can't zone a parcel here, a parcel there, and kind of add it up. They have to be, relatively sizable, and then half of the district has to be contiguous. The dimensional requirements are kind of up for grabs, and the way that the state is measuring all of this is collectively on an average basis. So, our dimensional requirements can be whatever is, reasonable and feasible for zoning requirements. And the density in any given sub-district doesn't have to hit the 15 units per acre minimum that the legislation lays out, as long as the cumulative density of the entire district is 15 units per acre. So the example here with some really quick math is, half the district can be 5 units per acre, which is far below 15 units per acre, and then the other half can be 25 units per acre, and that all averages out to 15. And so it's a little bit of flexibility. What we're going to find as this presentation goes on is that flexibility is good, but there's other elements of the guidelines and of the tools that the state has put at our disposal that kind of limit that flexibility. So what I'm going to talk about for most of this presentation is a tool called the compliance model that the Department of Housing and Community Development has put together. This is the main method by which DHCD is going to determine whether our zoning district complies with the law and with their guidelines or it doesn't. It is a software tool that takes the form of an Excel spreadsheet that's connected to a geographic information system where, to kind of put it very simply, you draw a line around your zoning district in GIS. That grabs all of the parcel information, that's sort of metadata that's behind all of those parcels. You plug it into the model, and then you plug in your dimensional requirements. So in this district, which applies to these parcels specific to Milton, we're going to have this height restriction, these setbacks, and this density. And then it'll spit out, basically a report card. And we'll see a version of that report card. We've done one run through the compliance model. It is a highly technical process. We do theoretically have the in-house capacity to run this model, but the state has put at our disposal a number of technical assistance resources in terms of direct technical assistance and grant funding that we've taken advantage of. So through the Massachusetts Housing Partnership, we're working with UTIL, which is a planning and design firm, and we've had them test 4 sub-districts. So the entire, and you'll see a map in a minute, the entire transit area is divided into 2 sub-districts. One of those sub-districts is effectively the Residence C zone in the transit area, and then the other sub-district is the A and B zones in the transit area. We tested the East Milton Business District, and then we also tested on Granite Ave, the State DPW Park and Ride Lot, and the American Legion Hall. The thinking behind these sub-districts is obviously we have to do something in the transit area. And then East Milton and Granite Ave, we thought these are non-residential. They have relatively large parcels. There's an opportunity to do, what we would consider to be traditional apartment buildings. Because once you sort of get away from those larger parcel non-residential areas, now we're starting to talk about, well, where in the residential neighborhoods are we doing this? And so we're eventually going to have to get there, but we wanted to see, can we get away with, not really kind of creeping into the residential neighborhoods if we can avoid it. So this is just a quick map showing what these sub-districts look like. The blue is sub-district 1, which is the C zone. It's kind of characterized by those smaller lot sizes. The yellow is the A and the B zones. That's sub-district 2 in the transit area. That's the Columbines and Milton Hill. In orange, you have the State DPW yard and American Legion Hall. And then in red, you've got the East Milton Business District. So this is sort of what the inputs are for what we put into this compliance model. So step 1 is you draw the line around the district, and that captures all the GIS information. Step 2 is you put in these dimensional requirements, which are typical of zoning. In the transit area, the only real difference between the underlying zoning and this is obviously the maximum units per lot. In town of Milton, it's 1 unit per lot, almost exclusively. And then the minimum lot sizes have been reduced. So in the green district, we have a 5,000 square foot minimum lot size. In the yellow district, a 10,000 square foot minimum lot size. All of the remaining setbacks, building heights, parking requirements are actually the same. And then some of those restrictions kind of go away in the Granite Ave, East Milton districts. Again, kind of acknowledging the fact that these are larger parcels. We want to give the opportunity to sort of do, more kind of apartment building style, style structures. In the transit area, we've limited it to 3 and 4 units per lot, which 3 is the minimum number of units you can have in a multifamily building and still be considered multifamily. Before I continue, I kind of dove right in. I'm going to use the term testing a lot here because that's exactly what we're doing. We're testing things. Nothing's final. Nothing's going to be final until town meeting. And quite frankly, there'll be a lot of process before it even gets to town meeting, to say nothing of, a public hearing at the planning board and a lot of outreach that we're going to be doing. But, right now, what we need to do is set a baseline for, here's what this looks like, and where do we need to add things, where do we need to subtract things, where do we need to kind of adjust the dials of these dimensional requirements. So these are all tests, and they're going to be tests for a while until we start to, refine things into something that looks like it might be compliant. So why do we test these sub-districts? What our approach as a department is to try to give the town as many options and as much flexibility as possible. There are unyielding thresholds and requirements that the law has. 15 units per acre, no age restrictions, reasonable size gets defined in the guidelines. The guidelines that DHCD has promulgated create a number of additional restrictions and constraints. So in a lot of ways, there's no choice in some of this stuff. We've got to do at least half of something in the transit area. We don't have a choice of where to put it. They're making us do that. So these tests are kind of intentionally testing more than is necessary so that you can sort of put everything on the table and then start to whittle away either dimensional requirements or whittle away the borders of sub-districts, based on what the town's priorities are going to be. And that's something we'll get into a little bit later. There are a couple constraints that the model, which is the tool that every community is going to be using, and DHCD put it together so that they have a single standard that they can judge towns by, which is efficient, and you understand why they would do it, but, Milton is a lot like a lot of other towns in a lot of ways, but Milton's also unique in a lot of ways. One of the constraints of the model is that it only responds to the parcels in town as they exist today. And so that's going to drive decision-making on dimensional requirements in a way that if we didn't have these restrictions, we may do things differently. So because much of the C zone in the transit area is actually, C zone is a 7,500 square foot minimum lot size. Most of those parcels are actually much smaller, between 5,000 and 7,000 square feet. And, you can't jam 10 units on a 5,000 square foot parcel. You just can't do it. So there's really a ceiling on how much density we can get in the C zone. The other thing, and this will be a through line throughout this presentation and frankly throughout this process, that, one thing that I've learned, through the zoning processes that we've done and the projects that we reviewed at the planning board is maintaining the physical character of the town is a priority. And until it stops being that, I'm going to make that assumption. The larger parcels in the yellow zone, the A and B zones, are big. We have acre parcels within a half a mile of transit. And those can technically, just if you're looking at a map and you're looking at parcel lines, those can support a significant amount of density. But those areas happen to also be the most historic part of town and really character defining for what we think of as the physical character of Milton. And so to sit there and say, an acre parcel on Milton Hill, you can put a 20 unit apartment building on it, there you run the risk of tear downs of really affecting the physical character of town. And so that's one of the reasons why, although we put a relatively small minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet, we capped the density at 4 units per lot, which in both of those transit subdistricts, we're trying to suggest dimensional requirements that give those houses the best chance of being redeveloped through additions and renovations rather than tear downs. With by right zoning, once the zoning's in place, you can do what you want, but you can set up restrictions and dimensional requirements that really guide people towards renovation, addition, put an extra floor on if you can make it, put an addition on the back, rather than just wholesale tearing down, a house that defines the character, the physical character of a neighborhood. So the outputs for the compliance model, and what we're looking at is, there are 3 thresholds that we'll talk about in a minute. The unit capacity, which is how many potential units could this zoning create? The size, the minimum size is 50 acres. And then what is the density overall of the district? So you can see in the transit area, we're way above everything. Our unit capacity threshold is 2461 units. We're way above that. We're way above on the district size, but we're way below on the density of the district when you look at the transit area. When you go into those other districts, Granite Avenue, East Milton, again, tons of units being produced, in these districts potentially under these, requirements. And the density is really high, 34 and 46 units per acre. But because the size of those units or of those districts is so small relative to the transit area, it's really not creating a big boost for the overall density. So all of that taken together, you can see this is the report card that I was talking about. So yes, we're compliant on the unit capacity in this scenario. Yes, we're compliant on the district size in this scenario. No, we're not compliant on the district density, which is 8.3 units per acre, just a little bit more than half of where we need to be. This scenario that we tested, we sort of knew this wasn't going to necessarily be a feasible scenario. I think, and I've admitted this, in other public meetings, I'm more of a go-go development guy than a lot of folks in town. I still don't think that we should be overshooting our unit capacity number by almost double. We should probably try to modulate that number. The district size can probably come along with that. We're going to need to get to the density that we need to get to. And so that's going to mean additional tests, bringing additional sub-districts, modulating the districts that we have in ways that kind of bring up that density number. So, so what did we learn? Because it's a test, and we want to learn things from the test. And just like I said, it's not going to be difficult to satisfy those first variables of the minimum size of the district and the zone capacity of the district. Even if we really chop those districts up, we're still going to be way above 50 acres. We're going to be comfortably above 2461. But it's the density that's going to be the trouble. And that's going to cause a lot of downstream effects for where we go next and what we do next. So just to kind of underscore, it's the transit area that is dragging down our density number. And that's the area that we have to zone for. And that's the area that has that constraint of, and I'll show you this, in the next couple slides, that what's driving these numbers is the existing parcelization and what are the possibilities on those parcels as they exist today. So the model doesn't assume that if you're in the green zone and you have two, you have a 2,500 square foot lot and there's a 2,500 square foot lot next door to you, it doesn't assume that you're going to buy that lot to create a zoning compliant lot and build 3 units on it. So if you're below the minimum lot size, we don't get credit in the model for any units whatsoever. So it doesn't contemplate consolidation of undersized parcels, and it doesn't contemplate subdivision. So in the yellow zone, which is a 10,000 square foot minimum lot size and 4 units per lot, if you have an acre, which has 4 of those 10,000 square foot lots inside of it, if you were to subdivide it, we don't get credit for that subdivision because it doesn't assume that there's going to be a subdivision. So once you get above 10,000 square feet in that subdistrict, you're only getting 4 units, irrespective of how big the lot is. And so that has an effect on our overall density number that you'll see in just a minute. So this is the prevailing lot sizes in that green transit area. And so the median is 7,000 square feet. The mode is 180 parcels that are in that 5,000 to 6,000 range. So that's our cutoff for minimum lot size in the scenario that we tested. The compliance model does not give credit for unit capacity to parcels that are below the minimum lot size, but that land is still in our gross density calculation. So it's a math equation. The numerator is the number of units that you could potentially produce. The denominator is the overall land area of the district. And so everything that's under this X is not giving us any units, but it is dinging us on the gross density in terms of land area. It's even more pronounced in the yellow zone. So we set that 10,000 square foot minimum lot size. And so that's here. There are 19 parcels like that. Everything to the right on this chart is above 10,000 square feet, could potentially be a zoning compliant lot. The median lot in this subdistrict is 25,000 square feet. So the implication here is every single one of these parcels is only giving you 4 units apiece, irrespective of its size. So there are 14 parcels that are greater than 100,000 square feet. So you could have 10 parcels of 10,000 square feet on a 100,000 square foot lot. Each of those gives you 4. That would give you 40 units. But the model's not assuming a subdivision there. So you've got all of this area and you're only got 4 units on it. And so that's really dragging down the overall density figure. So that leads to a number of questions about what are our priorities and what are the trade-offs inherent in those priorities. And so question 1 becomes, is preserving the current physical character of the transit area as much as possible important? My assumption going into this is that it is important. And if it is, we need to find density gains elsewhere in town in order to hit our compliance numbers and preserve that set of dimensional restrictions that give the transit area the best possible chance of not experiencing a lot of teardowns. If preserving the current physical character of the transit area isn't important, then we can find our requirements in the transit area and crank up that density and we're off to the races. I'm being a little flip there, but it is a question that we should probably have an explicit answer to. Is locating new housing in different locations throughout the town important? This is an equity question. To the extent that new development has impacts, the transit area is going to get a significant number of impacts. So if it's important to locate new housing in different locations through town, then we've got multiple options for multifamily housing throughout different areas in Milton. And we can locate up to half of our district outside of the transit area. If it's not important, then, as I said, the impacts on the transit area will be significant, but we may be able to hit our marks entirely in the transit area. How much parking is needed in new multifamily housing? Parking is the driver of site plans and the driver of the size, shape, and impact of new multifamily development. More parking means less space for everything else, not just housing, but open space, amenities, circulation, everything. The more parking you require, the more expensive your housing becomes. Surface parking is expensive to build and doesn't provide a return for a developer. Structured parking is off the charts expensive and also, no one's paying rent on their parking space. They're paying rent on the housing unit. So the more parking that you require, the more expensive the housing becomes. The bigger the site has to be, the more impervious surface the parcel has. And then excessive parking requirements. When you build parking, people bring their cars, especially in the transit area, which, one of the goals of this legislation is to encourage development where people can reasonably be expected to use transit and reduce their vehicle miles traveled, which has safety impacts, climate change impacts, pollution impacts, quality of life impacts relative to congestion. So if we feel like we have to have a lot of parking, we're going to wind up exacerbating a lot of the problems that, and we heard this in public comment earlier, relative to traffic and congestion and cars on the road. If we want to, be a little bit more deliberate about the parking that we decide to include in these zoning requirements, we have a chance to be a little bit more flexible in terms of what the dimensional requirements are. And then finally, our community benefits like affordable housing, open space, commercial space, and public realm improvements important. We're accustomed in Milton to doing special permit zoning where there's a discretionary, relief given to zoning requirements, and in exchange, we like to sort of pull back some benefits. The Milton Village zoning is a great example: affordable housing, historic preservation, public realm improvements. Under a by right zoning scheme, which the law is requiring us to create, you really don't have that opportunity to get those types of exactions. One thing that we are able to do is, what the state is concerned with is, there has to be a by right option that meets the minimum requirements of density and everything else. And so what you could potentially do is set a by right level of density that's allowed, and then give a bonus under a special permit above and beyond that. So you could say, you can build 25 units per acre on this parcel, or you can build 30 units per acre, but we get more affordable housing, or you have to rebuild the sidewalks, or something like that. So the state is really concerned with not loading up the by right scheme with a lot of goodies that could potentially stifle development. But if you want to give a bonus above and beyond those minimums, you can certainly be allowed to do that. And so that's something that a lot of different towns are exploring. But the key becomes setting that minimum level at a compliant level. And that may be not as easy to do as we would hope. So I'm still operating under two key assumptions, and I haven't heard otherwise from anyone to lead me to believe these two assumptions are wrong. That the C-zone, 3 units on a 5,000 square foot parcel is about as much as you can expect there. 4 units is tough, very tough, and then a smaller lot size becomes even tougher. So we're really at the max in the majority of parcels in the C-zone. And then again, we want to preserve the physical character of the district where possible by avoiding teardowns and encouraging renovations and additions. And so that means not loading up the density in the transit area where you see a situation where houses are starting to be knocked down for multifamily buildings. If you remember the condo conversion bylaw that we talked about 2 years ago already, one of the goals behind that was to take these big grand houses and give people the opportunity to kind of cut them up into multiple condo units, and then you preserve the physical building, you add housing, and everyone's happy, ostensibly. We wound up not bringing that to town meetings, so maybe not everyone was happy. But that's the kind of concept that we're trying to encourage here. So if these assumptions are accurate, we need to boost our overall density numbers by zoning for higher density elsewhere, or we need to remove parts of the transit area that are pulling down the overall density level, where I talked about some of those really small parcels that are really doing nothing for us, some of those really big parcels that are not doing nearly enough. We probably need to do both. So to answer the question of what's next, there's a couple additional sub-districts that we're going to be testing where multifamily may be feasible. And again, what we're trying to do is target larger parcels where there's either already non-residential or existing multifamily uses. And so, I'm going to show you some parcels. I'm going to show you some maps. These are tests. As I said earlier, what we're trying to do is put as much on the table as we can for public, for town meeting members, for the planning board, for you, so that we can start to take things off the table and still sort of be compliant. So on the left, we're looking at Fuller Village and 1200 Brush Hill Road. There's the potential to, Fuller Village is already multifamily, not at the density that's at the minimum level, but we could potentially create a zoning district that kind of ups that density to kind of hit compliance. On the right side, the A. Thomas and Sons landscape area plus the Animal Rescue League land off of Randolph Avenue. Again, large parcel, non-residential use. It is adjacent to a residential neighborhood, but it is on the state highway, kind of on the outskirts of town. We thought we want to see what's possible there and how can that contribute to our numbers. We're going to refine some of the larger parcels in the transit area. So what you're looking at here on the left is the Milton Village and Central Ave business districts. We're going to dial up the density levels on these highlighted parcels, which either already have existing multifamily or are redevelopment parcels by virtue of their current use. There already is multifamily here in this district. It is tolerable, and if it can help us hit our numbers, then we think it's worth, taking a look at. And then on the right side, on the other side of the transit area, we have Unkley House at 30 Curtis Road, which again, big multifamily building on a big parcel. We want to see what that sub-district can do for us. And then we're actually going to be expanding the Granite Ave district to kind of loop into Granite Ave, which is the office building right by the interchange there. Could be a potential redevelopment for multifamily, again, on a state road, on the outskirts of town. Just so people aren't frightened, part of the marsh is technically in this district. One of the ways that the compliance model operates is state land, wetlands, DCR land that's part of an ACEC or part of a state reservation are unbuildable, but you can use them to kind of create a contiguous district. And so there's not an assumption there's going to be any building there. We're not going to get dinged on that area for our gross density calculation. It's really just there to loop in that other parcel up there. So this is my last slide. We're going to be holding monthly public forums similar to the one we held last week. Our next one's on June 15th. It'll be in the Keys Room. We're going to be doing them every month over the summer. We're going to be putting all of our information on this page, on the Planning and Community Development page. We're going to be at the farmers market. We're going to be on the lawn on Wednesday nights. We're going to be all over town. We're going to be talking to the PTO. We're going to be talking to, everybody. So tell all your friends. You can sign up for our email list. Every forum that we have that's recorded gets posted there. Every piece of information we produce gets posted on this website. We're doing additional compliance testing. As that information comes back to us, we're going to report back to the planning board. We're going to report back to you. We're going to report back to the public and get to a point where we can start talking about, okay, we have compliant districts. What are the effects going to be here? And can we start, taking out the scalpel as opposed to, I'm shoveling things onto a pile here and we're going to start taking stuff off the pile with a little bit more care and discretion. So that's all I've got for now. I know that was a lot, technical stuff, quite frankly, boring stuff. But this is how the sausage is getting made by us and quite frankly, by a lot of communities in the rapid transit areas. So
Thank you, Tim.
that's that.
Thank you, Tim.
Happy to take any questions.
Great.
Please hit me.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Questions or comments from the members?
You got an hour?
I think Roxanne beat Tim. Ms. Musto.
Okay, thank you. I just have a quick question. So we're classified as a rapid transit area. However, we have the trolley. So again, I'm wondering what we've done about that to see about reclassifying us, because I think, we're being compared to like Brookline and places that have active trolleys. So I don't understand why we are not trying to look into that or trying to, well, maybe we are, but what are we doing about that? Because I think that is a big concern. That would be my first question.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And it's actually a question we've heard at public forums that we've done. What I'll say first is this is going to be something that's up to you, and I'm assuming that you want my input and advice on that. Because ultimately what it's going to be is if the select board, as sort of the chief executive of the town, feels that this is an issue worth reaching out to the state on and seeing if we could potentially get some relief, it'll come from you all. So that's the first thing. And then, what informs that is, and this is a bad answer to the question, but it is really quite simple. DHCD and the legislature are piggybacking off of how the MBTA classifies its own system. And if it's as simple as going to mbta.com and looking up the maps. The Mattapan trolley line is rapid transit service. and they consider it to be rapid transit service. And so when DECD says rapid transit communities are a certain type of community, commuter rail communities are a certain type of community, and then if you don't have commuter rail service but you're adjacent to a town that has commuter rail service, you're another type of community. And so it's literally pegged to the T's own classifications of its own service. So what I'll say about that is this, that, obviously the Mattapan trolley looks different from the red line, the blue line, even the green line. There's similarities to the green line, obviously, but, we've got the old PCC cars. It's a different sort of, set of infrastructure and rolling stock. What I have found in research, based on numbers that the T produces, and again, this is, these numbers are from 2019, which is the last, set of complete comprehensive data that's available. In terms of headways, which is, the measure of, a train comes to Central Ave station, and then you look at your clock, and the amount of time before the next train comes, that's your headway. And that's sort of a measure of how frequent your service is. The Mattapan trolley headways are competitive with the D line through Brookline and Newton, which I think is probably the most comparable amount of service in the system. It far exceeds the red line, which it feeds into. We've got between 6 and 8 minute headways on the Mattapan trolley compared to 10 to 15 minute headways once you get to Ashmont. So, again, the caveat being, obviously service has been compromised throughout the system. These are 2019 numbers. If you assume that everyone has got the same degradation in service, we're still, doing the same as we were, on a relative level. The trains are coming at a good enough clip. There's a question of capacity. Obviously, the trains can come as often as they want, but if they're jammed up, to crush capacity, they're not going to do it any good. We are not near crush capacity on the Mattapan trolley line. Crush capacity is kind of what you would imagine it to be. Everyone's kind of jammed in, standing room only. So there is capacity there. This, if there is development on the transit corridor, that capacity will get soaked up. The Mattapan Transformation Project, which I know everyone understands is, behind schedule and over budget, but there is a project, an infrastructure project, a capital project on the T's part to refurbish that rolling stock, repair the existing stations, and eventually get new rolling stock that will have higher capacity. So ultimately, what we would be asking is for DHCD to carve out what is a bespoke, exclusive kind of classification for the town of Milton, because we are the only MBTA community under this legislation that has this type of trolley. And we would be saying basically like, look, your rapid transit community classification, your commuter rail classification, your adjacent community classification, we need to have a special consideration. There could be an argument there, and if the select board's inclined to make it, I'll provide whatever support I need to do. My advice would be to kind of take a different tack, and which the tack that the city of Newton has actually been taking. They have, the Green Line is what it is, but their commuter rail stations are really not good. And, what they have been approaching the T with, and the state and DHCD and whoever will listen is, look, we're doing our best to play ball with this, very disruptive and very impactful legislation. We're doing our part. You need to do your part. And so, we have obviously, been aggressive with the T in other respects, justifiably. And I think there's an opportunity to sit here and say, like, look, you're asking us to do something based on the reliability and the frequency of your service. So let's make sure that you've got frequent and reliable service. So that's kind of where I stand on that. But again, if the board believes that there's truly a significant difference between the Mattapan trolley service and other types of service throughout the system, that's definitely something that the board, the select board could pursue, and I'll, provide whatever support is needed for that.
So I just had a couple of quick follow-ups. One is, what is the next category down in terms of units? What's the classification? And also, have you talked to other towns that are in a similar situation? Are there any kind of meetings going on between town planners in different towns on this, or, you know?
Yeah, so to answer that second part of the question, because I'm going to be looking up the answer to the first question. So I have been kind of on my own in touch with. I've been talking with Newton and Brookline, kind of particularly. Brookline is, in addition to Milton, the only other town meeting community in the rapid transit classification. The rapid transit communities are who you would expect if you looked at the map: Quincy, Braintree, Cambridge, Somerville, Chelsea, Brookline, Newton, and then there's a handful of others, Revere, obviously. Brookline being the only town meeting town besides Milton. And I think Newton, again, similar type of service in terms of the D line, through their city. And, Newton and Milton are similar-ish enough. And in those two cases, those two communities actually were in the middle of zoning processes in their commercial districts when MBTA communities came down. And so they're actually piggybacking on those processes and are actually kind of, Newton is, after some initial fits and starts, is actually probably one of the leaders among the rapid transit communities in terms of the progress that they've made, and I think the seriousness and gravity which they've kind of embraced their pursuit of compliance. But I think everyone, and then, in addition to that, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council has been convening a group of representatives from all of the rapid transit communities for monthly sessions to kind of talk through, okay, what are you seeing in terms of compliance? What has your interaction been with the state? What has your interaction been with your communities? And so there's, an exchange of ideas, of kind of insights and kind of comparing notes in terms of, where different communities are in the process. One thing that I'll say that's come out of that is, people have been working with this compliance model that DHCD has created. Like I said, you understand why the state has to create a standard tool that everyone uses. They're going to have to be evaluating 175 zoning bylaws. They need to have something to make an apples to apples comparison. That being said, the limitations and the restrictions of the model itself affect how you create this zoning. And if we didn't have to, hit certain thresholds or kind of do things, inputs into the model to kind of suit the model, we might be doing things differently. There's a lot of arcane details, but I think a lot of communities, Brookline especially, is kind of encountering stuff with, how it treats parking. It doesn't assume structured parking, it assumes surface parking. So when you say, there's going to be 30 parking spaces in this project, it's looking at a lateral, flat surface parking lot as opposed to a possibly multiple level garage. And that affects, the amount of density you can get on a site, just as kind of one example. So that's the type of information that kind of we've seen. Everyone is really making a really good faith effort towards compliance. Different communities are in different positions. Somerville, recently did a citywide rezoning that they're frankly not interested in tinkering with too much. And so they're kind of, I don't want to say struggling, but they're having a little bit of a tougher time. Newton is looking at all of their village centers. That's the zoning process that they were in the middle of. And they're trying to sort of backfill their zoning requirements, to be compliant with MBTA communities. But just to answer your question, Roxanne, about the first question about what is the next level of, types of communities. So really what it is the amount of unit capacity that you're responsible for. And that means that in rapid transit communities, again, the thinking being because rapid transit is the best kind of, service, that you are going to be responsible for, the most amount of potential new housing. And so, let me see, I'm on the website right now. So rapid transit communities, their zone capacity number is 25% of their existing housing stock. So we have 9,400 something odd, housing units in town. 25% of that is 2461. That's where that comes from. The next level down is for commuter rail communities, and I believe they become responsible for 20%. I'm trying to find it on the website. It's probably in the guidelines.
I thought it was 10.
But that's the next level. And again, that's pegged to the type of service. So when I say that we would be asking the state to create a kind of unique, bespoke classification, it's because we're asking them to kind of redefine their own conception of what their service is. And then adjacent communities, obviously, I think they're at 15% of their year-round housing count. So those are the increments. So we would still have to produce a significant amount of housing, but obviously it's less. It would be less than 25% depending on the decision-making that the state made.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions, Mr. Zoll?
Tim, I was at the forum that you did last week. I thought you did a great job. Just wanted to say that, and it was really nice to see so many folks from the community out and asking questions.
Ben, can I just really quick, I want to correct some of those numbers because I finally brought it up at the table. So rapid transit communities, the percentage of their total housing units, they're responsible for 25%. Commuter rail communities are responsible for 15%. Adjacent communities, 10%. And then adjacent small towns, which is the fourth classification, 5% of their total year-round housing stock. The 20% number was from a previous iteration of the guidelines that had another tranche for bus communities. So again, if there was going to be a special carve-out for town of Milton, I would anticipate it would be between that 25 and 15% number. Sorry to interrupt. I brought up that.
No, thanks. It's good to be accurate. So I was just commending you on the forum. I'm glad that you're doing this monthly. I think it's really important, and I've seen at like Coffee Break and other places the posting about these forums. So I think you're doing a great job there. Just an idea for you, maybe even more than anything else, would be maybe a questionnaire or a survey of folks that are particularly in the transit corridor, because it's going to be up to them about what happens to their property, right? Like if they have new zoning, it'd be interesting to know, like, is everybody there planning on selling immediately and moving, or is everybody kind of sit tight and see what happens? Like, kind of that might give a bit of a sense of like what can people anticipate from their from their neighbors and their community. So that's not really a question, that's just kind of a thought. The question that I had was, one of the things that came up in that forum was the question of like how are we going to fit 2,400 new families into Milton, where we've already got overcrowded schools. And I think obviously we're working on the school thing, but there was kind of an important point that came up that we're not actually talking about 2,400 total new units, because you've got families on all of these lots already. So I think it'd be an interesting sort of number to kind of look at, both in terms of like, well, here are all of the new units that we've got, but then also what does this mean in terms of our total new number of families? And then obviously we're assuming that this is not happening all at once. We're assuming that this is happening over a number of years. In some cases, it may never even happen. Folks don't want to, do anything to their homes.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's an important point to kind of, remember. And I'll give you a great example of kind of how we're doing this. 2461 is an eye-popping number for everybody. My eyes popped when I saw it when it first came out. But that number is I'm confident saying entirely theoretical. There is no chance in our grandchildren's lifetime that we will see 2,461 new units produced under zoning that we produce under this legislation. I like to say all the time, in 1938 when we passed the current zoning that we have right now, the committee that put together that zoning said we have a zone capacity for, 60 to 70,000 Miltonians, which obviously we have not hit even close to that for a variety of reasons. But, that's not take it to the bank type stuff, but, that's just how zoning works. Not everyone's going to redevelop at once, if at all, especially when you have thousands of parcels, that's thousands of individual decisions to redevelop or not based on everyone's individual circumstances. But I think, the issue of, there's the unit capacity And the way that they think about unit capacity is you look at the parcel as a blank slate. So it doesn't matter what's on the parcel right now. What matters is what does new zoning allow on that parcel. So we've got predominantly one house on one lot in these districts. And so your unit capacity, if you upzone a single family lot, your unit capacity goes from 1 to 3, but your sort of net increase in units is only 2, right? Because there's already 1 unit on it. Now that unit, that family may not stay there, they may go away or whatever, and it's a new family plus 2 other families that move in. So on an individual level that has implications, but from a municipal impact perspective, we're not even talking about 2461 net new units. We're talking about less than that. And again, the time scale here, and it becomes important because one of the things that the planning board is doing is using some grant funding that we got from the state to do a municipal fiscal impact analysis. You may have seen this done for large development projects in the past where you sort of say like, okay, we know there's going to be 500 units on this piece of land in this discrete location in town. What's that going to do for police response and fire response and kids in the schools and pipes and roads and et cetera. Doing it for zoning is a little different because again, there's no guarantee that anyone takes advantage of this zoning in any given year. And so you really have to start to make some assumptions about, what is the time scale we're looking at, because if you're asking, what is it going to look like if we get 2461 new units, your time scale is hundreds of years, which is not really important information to have. And then you have to make an assumption about how much can you reasonably expect in a given year for there to be redeveloped. And so we're going to have to come up with those and then, figure out like, okay, this is going to, we're going to need X number of new cops and X number of new firefighters and X number of new teachers, but we're also going to get Y amount of new tax revenue. And, we're building infill housing in places where infrastructure already exists. And so the infrastructure costs are already baked in. So this is the type of analysis that the planning board is going to be commissioning. I've got an RFP out. We're waiting for responses for that. And so that's a really important thing to take into account. The reason it becomes important is because when you've got, a lot of people are hesitant to redevelop in existing residential neighborhoods because of all the obvious reasons in terms of physical character and disruption and displacement. But from a purely dollars and cents perspective, because your net new number of housing units and ostensibly your net new population is going to wind up being less than if you zoned for the state DPW yard, which has 0 houses on it right now. So every new unit on the state DPW yard is a new household, a new family, a new potential set of expenses for the town via infrastructure and services. So it's important to keep in mind that this is and the state uses kind of complicated language when they say this is a zoning mandate, not a production mandate. So if we pass compliant zoning and DHCD gives it the thumbs up and not a single unit gets built, we're still in the clear and we're compliant. Now there will be units built, but there's no expectation or requirement that any amount of housing actually get built. We're just trying to sort of set the landscape. One final thing, and I know I've been talking for a lot, but one thing, like when you see, for instance, when we're going to talk about rezoning, 88 Wharf, which already has a multifamily building on it. Now, we may zone that parcel of land for, it's currently 2-ish acres. It's got 78 units inside of it. So, it's between 35 and 38 units per acre of density right now. We may zone that for 40 units per acre, and now we've got a big parcel with a good density on it. The 78 different condo owners at 88 Wharf, I refuse to believe will ever collectively decide that they want to demolish their building and redevelop it for a handful of new units. And so, we're rezoning for a by right development on a site that already has a multifamily building on it. So we're kind of like, people ask about, can we get credit for units we already have? Not exactly, but that's one way that we can kind of acknowledge we already have some multifamily housing. Let's get some credit for it without, again, maybe decades down the line it may happen, but there's really no immediate kind of threat of that sort of thing going on.
Great.
That's why kind of that net gross kind of conversation becomes important.
Other comments or questions?
I'm gonna let it go for tonight.
If
If I get started, I'll be going for now. I'm just gonna let it go.
Can I just
Yeah, Ms. Bradley.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Can I just make a recommendation? If folks do have comments and questions from this board, they can go to these other meetings and ask them and bring them up there. And we as a board can also have a separate meeting just for this. This is obviously something that's very important to us. It's something that we're gonna have to really dig into the weeds about. To try and get our questions answered at this point is not something that's gonna be workable. So
Productive,
I
yeah.
encourage everybody to go to these other meetings throughout the summer. Please make time on your calendars. I know I will. And then we can reconvene and figure out what the next steps are, because this is just a lot of time.
Yeah, and I'm happy to come back to this board whenever you have me. So,
Absolutely, Tim.
Thank
it's
you,
really
Tim.
important
Absolutely,
that
Tim.
You all
Yep.
apprised of this.
Any other comments or questions? I will just say, and Tim, this is more of a comment, and you can just yes or no in terms of the response. If we are at the point where we think we have a plan for unit capacity and area size, and the density is what's holding us back, is it possible to think about the potential for relief from DCHD for that requirement? If we're seeking compliance in other areas and that's something to think about. You can just say yes, it's something to think about, or no, it's not something to think about.
So you can always think.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Fair enough. All right. So I think we can move on to item 7, which is discussion approval of the local initiative program application for affordable local action units at 131 Elliott Street. Is this Tim or you?
Yeah, so this is just to build on, we just did this a few months ago for a similar project on Fairbanks. But this is to satisfy the 4 affordable units that are in the 131 Elliott Street project. The local initiative program application was in your packets, and with the approval tonight, we'll send that off to DHCD to keep that process moving.
Comments or questions?
No.
It's the Hendry's building.
I'm sorry?
It's the Hendry's building, yes.
Yes,
Yes.
that's correct.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve, what's 7 again? The application, local initiative program application for 4 affordable local action units at 131 Elliott Street.
And authorize the chair to sign.
And authorize the chair to sign
I'll
tonight.
second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Item 8, update discussion on animal shelter building project. Mr. Milano?
Sure. As the board will remember, we were requested to meet with the Attorney General's office to discuss the potential use of the town farm for a potential animal shelter. That meeting is scheduled for tomorrow at 2 o'clock, so we'll certainly report back once we have that conversation. I know in the background, the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee, they've been up there, they've done a site visit. George Tagayas marked up a site plan just to have a conceptual location as to where it could go on the site. And the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee has been working to work with its professional consultants to be prepared to continue to work towards a site plan on that site if that's the direction everything moves. And as an aside, they have been also continuing to look at the cost estimate that came back to make sure that those numbers that were in that are vetted out, and working with another modular construction firm just to double check those numbers before presenting the select board with a recommendation in terms of site more broadly, and obviously that will be heavily informed by the conversation with the Attorney General's office as well. So that's all I had, Mr. Chair, unless you had anything specific.
Comments or questions on item 8?
Moving right along.
Item 9, discussion approval grant of easement for USC LLC over the dump access road.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the grant of easement to USC LLC over the dump access road. Do you need the number on, Randolph? Is it 705? You don't need the number, okay. I think it's 705 Randolph Ave.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Item 10, discussion approval of, no, it's just really discussion. Mass DOT project at Randolph Ave and Chickatawbut Road. I will say, I know we had a request for the DOT to join us tonight, but Mr. Milano, maybe you can update us on that.
Sure. We reached out to Mass DOT to invite them back to update the select board on progress or where that project is now. We know that they have progressed the 75% design stage, and that those plans are currently under review internally at Mass DOT. We exchanged emails with them. They are available to come to a select board meeting, the second meeting in June, which is the 27th, if I have that date right. So we'll certainly include that on that agenda if the select board wishes.
Comments or questions? Ms. Musto.
Thank you. So a couple of things on that. I did reach out to Senator Timilty to find out if he was able to set up any kind of meeting on site, because we had talked about having an on-site meeting. He's been trying to reach out to the state, and that we're not getting much progress with getting an on-site meeting. So I'm wondering if, Nick, if you're able to reach out to the governor's office and see if we can get an on-site meeting, especially if they're at 75% design stage. The other thing he wanted me to let everybody know is that he couldn't be here tonight. I had mentioned that this was on a topic for tonight, but he was in the middle of budget process at the State House. And he did put in some funding that he's trying to get through, because he feels that listening to the residents, it's not just that intersection, but it's the whole roadway. And he talked with apparently Lieutenant Alba, Chief King, and Chase Berkeley, and looking at putting some money towards 2 lights on that stretch of 28. So he's put in for trying to get $800,000 towards that. So he's trying to get something done for the whole roadway with putting in some additional lights there. But I also would say that I wonder if our board, and we did the follow-up letter, but did we ever take a vote on whether or not we were supporting this idea that they're putting forward? I don't know if that would make a difference to have them sort of, put it on hold for a minute while we, try to figure this out a little bit more.
So did the board take a vote on the proposal by DOT for Chickatobit? I don't believe so.
Okay. Is that something that we should do?
I think, Mr. Chair, I think we might have way back. I think something Mr. Milano might have to look, but something tells me, reminds me, it might have been around the 25. I remember we had either the 25 or the 50 here.
I don't remember a vote, but we can check that.
We might have. I think we should take a
We can
peek
check
there. And just seconding to Roxanne's point, the secretary did come and tour that.
That's right.
Secretary did come out this winter with both Senator Timilty, us, and Rep. Driscoll, and walk that area.
Since the meeting, though, I don't know that it was, I believe that at the meeting that we had, that Zoom meeting that a lot of people attended, I think that was brought up to have an on-site meeting with, the new administration and so forth. So I'm just wondering if this is something that we can reach out and try to request.
We can certainly do that if that's the board's will. We can certainly do that.
I would just
Ms.
like,
Bradley.
thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I would just like to reiterate that this is a state-owned road. I said this the last time we brought this up. I will say this every time we bring this up. This is not a road that we own. We do not have any decision-making in this. We can say all that we want to say. We can do all the standouts. We can lock ourselves to the signs on the side of the road. We can do all of those things, but it's still a state road. And so I guess for me, I don't know why I would vote on a state road, because I don't have any authority over it, even though according to the ballot, we're the surveyor of roads. But this is not one of my jurisdiction, so I wouldn't be doing that. Second of all, I don't know, I mean, we can certainly ask for people to come out and do another tour of it, but I do remember, Mr. Wells, the folks coming out in the wintertime. Everybody took a walk around. I didn't go, but it was made public. People were aware of it. So I'm wondering if, I love this idea of Senator Timilty trying to get more lighting money. That's a great idea. Who knows where it's going to go? But I think that that's something that we should definitely look at moving forward. I don't know what another walkabout would do. And so I guess I'm asking those that have been on the board for longer and know more than me, why we would do that.
So I could say I
you.
was there with Secretary Tessler and Senator Timilty, Representative Driscoll, and Arthur Doyle, and we were up at Chickatobit, and I think there is benefit because the players are new.
Okay.
And I think to have people here to see what it is, to see the impact. I think it's useful.
Okay.
So I would be in support of that because I think it's useful. Ms. Musto.
I think that there's a new administration, and I don't actually recall that walk.
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all, so
this
I
what the-
didn't, but irregardless of that, we have a new administration in
Right.
now.
100%.
So I think it would be beneficial, and who knows what will happen regarding a state roadway, but I think that, the jurisdiction that it goes through our town, I think is important, and I think that it would be important that we're representing the people that have concerns about this. So I think it would be important to have an on-site, and that might be something to ask Nick if he'd be able to try to reach out to the governor's office and see if we can get something on site. Especially because I think that, going to a 75% design very quickly as they did, I think it's important.
May I ask something?
Ms. Bradley.
Thank you. If we do that, and I'm fine with it, can we also ask that they walk down the road, or they drive down the road and
They
see
do
it
that.
from different
Yeah.
angle, like different positions, not just the roundabout space that they're talking about? I think that that's really important, because I do, like I said just a second ago, I really like this idea of more lights. I mean, I hate sitting at lights, but also I think it's a great idea. So if we could include that, thank you.
Thank
Other
you.
comments or questions on this? All right, so is it the consensus that the board or Mr. Milano and/or Mr. Milano should reach out
That's fine.
to DOT to see if we could get an on-site to discuss both the intersection and the entire corridor?
Thank you.
And to discuss any interim measures that they could put in place, because even if they go forward with the roundabout, as we know, it'll be another 18 to 24 months,
Right, to do
which is just
Yeah.
Right.
It's 20 lives, probably.
given what's going, yes.
So many accidents.
All right, so we'll look to Mr. Milano to determine the best way to make that reach out. Anything else on item 10? Item 11, discussion approval of pride flag display at Manning Park and at Town Green Hugo Barron Gazebo. I think we can go to Ms. Bradley?
Yeah. So, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. We, meaning me and Nick, met with Chase at the Manning Park and talked to him about what would be the best thing for time and the best thing for our workers' day-to-days. So the Ramadan lights that were up were amazing and beautiful, but they took 4 days to put up and 3 days to come down. That's 7 days out of a month. That's a lot. We were really just looking for something a lot simpler. I've asked Nick and Chase to look at banner holders for our light posts. So just like they have at the Milton High School, instead of having to put up a big thing, you can just put up banners. So it's just this big for any holiday, for anything that you would like it to be. It's going to be a lot easier if, in fact, more people come looking for that. So what we are asking for today is simple little rope lights. They plug in at the top. They go around like the tinsel. We also met with Nick. I'm forgetting his name.
Jack Calabro.
Jack, who does all this work. He was great. I still have his LED Christmas light in my car. But basically, you plug it in at the top. You run rope. It's just like a rope light all the way down. They're rainbow. They can be the towns. There's going to be private folks that raise dollars for this. It's pretty simple. There wouldn't be that many. No flags at all, because running flags requires multiple wires, requires air to flow through. It's just a lot of work, and nobody wants to add extra hours onto our staff. So there's that piece, and then the Hugo gazebo is just a simple 3x5 flag, which we had for Ukraine for many months. It would just be for the month of June. It is being purchased by myself. It already has. Should be here by the end of the week, Nick. And so that's all we got.
Comments or questions? Mr. Zoll.
I'd just like to say, as a parent of a trans youth, I think both of these efforts are really fantastic. You know, the LGBTQ kids are at a lot of risks, and one of the highest risks is mental health. and having the community really embrace them and their cause. I think it's fantastic. So Aaron, thanks for all the work you put in on this. I think it's really important.
Thank you.
So you want a motion to?
Mr. Wells.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair. You want to, from like June 1st or July, what's the date?
June, it's just the month of June.
The month of June. So June 1st to June 1st to June 31st. So 31 days in
30.
June?
30.
30.
Sorry, it's been
It's
a
all right.
long week.
Yeah.
June 1st to June 30th. Pride display at both Manning Park and at the town green on the Baron Hugo gazebo. All right?
Thank you.
Motion's been made
I'll second that
and
if that's
seconded.
okay.
All those in favor, any discussion, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, item 12 is a Pride Month proclamation. We first issued this proclamation in June of 2019. I believe it is I believe it's the same proclamation, maybe with some
Different signatures.
some changes, but I believe it's along the lines of what we've done for the last 4 years. So,
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the Pride Month proclamation. Do I need a date on that too? Or is it
no.
Pride Month proclamation on behalf of the Select Board of Milton?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I do have a
Ms. Bradley.
discussion, only because I forgot to say something earlier.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to remind folks that the private parade that happens, that starts at Pierce Middle School, is going to be on June, I should have had this up and ready, but I think it's June 11th. Yes, June 11th. And it will be at 4:30 at Pierce Middle School. They do a nice little parade around town, and then they come back. There'll be some speakers there. All are welcome from the public, including all elected boards and members. So I hope to see many of your beautiful faces out and about on the 11th. Thank you so much.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Item 13, discussion, select board retreat. We typically try to have a retreat at which we can discuss select board goals and objectives for the year and town administrator goals and objectives for the year. In the past, we've done it on Saturday mornings or sometime on Saturday. But question is, do we do it and when? So the floor is open.
So,
Ms. Bradley.
thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I received an email from the town administrator asking for dates in June, Saturday availability. I have given my dates for that. I think the sooner that we get our goals and objectives on the table and start working on them, the better. But I'm a goals-oriented person, and so I like to know what I'm working towards. So for me, the sooner that we can do this in June, if the dates that I chose do not work for other folks, I can choose other dates. I have very flexible parenting, thank God. My ex lives in town. So, so whatever folks can do, I'm here to do. I'd like to see it soon.
Other comments and questions? Ms. Musto. Oh,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Wells.
no, go ahead.
Okay,
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm in trouble in June. I've got two major things I have to handle in June that it just, Saturdays will be gone before I even know it, just starting with the first.
Is
So-
it, well, then there's a possibility of doing it either during the day or in the evening on a weekday, if the weekends don't work, if we want to try for June. Ms. Musto.
I was going to offer, could we look at July on a Saturday? Only because I don't like to tie up like my day off doing a 3-hour meeting, and Nick, where he's here at Town Hall, I just don't want to, I'd rather do a Saturday. And I've got like a couple of different things on some Saturdays that chop up the day a little. So I don't know, I know you had mentioned at one point maybe July. So I'm just wondering if that would work for others on a Saturday.
July.
Mr. Why don't we, if we could just indicate, and then we can, that'll, Mr. Zoll.
So July for me, it's more limited, but you could probably make definitely the first 2 weekends are out. It's possible that I could do one of the latter half of July weekends, but I don't see anything on my calendar that says I couldn't do that.
So is there, are the Saturdays in June out? Is that?
No, not for me.
No,
Not
I
for
know,
me.
not for you. I
For
know-
me, there's
Is it
no
out?
way I
Okay,
can do
all
anything.
right. So then that means we push, and then if we're not going to do it at night, we're not going to do it on a weekday, that means we push to July. So, what are the thoughts on July?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Bradley?
Thank you. So I cannot do the 15th or the 22nd. I will not be in town. I can do it by Zoom.
Are we, do we have any more weekends left in May? We don't.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, no, I'm
Can we
just
buy one?
trying to get
Can I buy
something.
a- Can you buy a Saturday?
Trying to get,
31st day of June.
trying to get something,
Right, what
yeah.
about the 3rd?
The 3rd of June?
Yeah. I mean, that's the next weekend. That's the first weekend after May.
I have something.
Well, I think Mr. Wells,
I
do you?
can't.
Yeah, okay.
I particularly did like when we did it last year, we did it on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And it was nice because it was nice and quiet. It was just a couple hours. You could really concentrate on
If we
that.
can get a Saturday, that'd be great. Be great.
All right, I'll say this.
Mr. Wells?
If we could do it a half day on the 3rd, maybe I could do that. That'd be the only Saturday I could do it. And then, because in July, as you may recall, I'm gonna fly west and be absolutely out of communication from the 7th until the 16th.
Okay,
I could do the morning of June 3rd.
okay. Anyone else?
You wanna go to Curry?
I can make anything work for you, Mr. Wells.
Ms.
on
Musto,
the
June
3rd.
3rd, is that possible?
So that's one of your days.
No, I have my kids that day,
Yeah,
but I'm gonna pawn them off.
Yeah.
It's your birthday? I'll make a cake.
That's your birthday.
And fruit for Mike, because he doesn't eat
I
cake.
have something,
full,
I mean, it might be tight. I don't know if I can do that. Was there another alternative? Was that the only day? Is there anything in July that worked for anybody?
Could the July 29th work?
It does for me. I can do it.
You can or cannot?
I can do the 29th.
I don't know if that works
I
for
don't know
you
if it's
guys.
too late.
Of July?
Yeah.
And
That's too late. So we won't, so tell me, let's go back to a weeknight. So let's,
so the June 3rd is not, okay. All right. Yeah,
I
that's
don't know
fair.
about June, it's just cutting it tight. That's why I was asking about the July date.
Yep.
I don't know, what have you done in the past, Mike?
We
What-
have
Saturdays.
typically done Saturday mornings. And
September,
we've
usually
typically done it, I mean, last year, I think, was one of the later times, waiting until September.
Okay.
We've typically tried to do it in the summer. There were some times when it was August. We've done it earlier, June or July. I think there's a benefit to doing it earlier because, as has been articulated, but, we're at the mercy of our schedules, so we do the best we can. So if we do it in July, that'll be sooner than we did it last year, right? Because we didn't do it.
Like 2 months.
We didn't do it till September last year, so.
So it's like the 2 months.
So, it's however we can, I understand everyone has busy schedules and difficulties, so we'll just do the best we can.
I love the summer. The only bad thing is we're gonna be shoveling snow before you know it. That's
Yeah.
why I hate,
So we have I think June 3rd was possible, although I think I can try to do anything in the morning, but June 3rd was an issue for me, I think, as well, but I could work it. But, so we have, I think, July 29th, which is what Mr. Zoll presented. And so, June 29th?
July.
I'm sorry, July 29th.
Does that work for you,
Sorry,
everybody
July
else?
29th.
yeah, that worked for me.
July 29th? All right, so we will pencil in July 29th, subject to, everyone can recheck their calendars since it's so far out. We can pencil in July 29th.
I'm in the friggin' wrong year. I'm looking going.
All right, item 14, discussion approval, appointments, reappointments of select board members. These are committees. Is my mic working? I guess it is.
It
Um,
is, turn the
Oh, they did.
volume down in here to stop the feedback.
Just us now.
Got it. So, are the members ready to discuss appointments to some or all of the committees?
Yes.
Sounds like we are. So let's go to the first one.
I'm just one person.
No, I saw nodding by others as well. Richard?
So how do you wanna do this? Do you wanna?
Well, why don't we just go through the committees and see who's interested, and if we can get a consensus, we'll go ahead. My suggestion is if we can get a consensus, if everyone agrees that the 2 people for finance, for example, we'll just do it. If there's some question, then we'll defer. We'll defer, and people can have discussions as long as they don't have discussions among 3 people, if it's discussions among just 2 of you.
So you don't want to, I was thinking, do you want to go through whoever wants to stay where they're at now?
We can do that, we can do that.
That's probably
Yep,
the easiest thing to do
We can do that,
first.
we can just tick through the committees. Why don't
And
we
then
tick through the
plug
committees,
the
how they're
holes. All
listed?
right, go
Yeah,
ahead.
why don't we go through how they're listed and see
First,
who's,
yeah.
see what the interest is. First is Select Board Finance Committee. Who is interested in Select Board Finance Committee?
So I served last year. I'd be more than happy to continue my service, to continue that continuity into this year.
Do you want motions, Mr. Chair? Do you want motions?
Well,
or
let's
no?
see,
All right,
let's see
okay,
how,
all right,
there's
okay.
let's see how
two.
we do first. I was on it, but I'm not planning on staying, because
I'll miss you.
I'm doing this, so I'm not planning on
I'd be
staying.
interested in the
Mr. Zoll, any other interest in Select Board Finance Committee?
It's so much fun at
All right,
8 a.m.
So,
Wait.
Give me a
Should've
capital
told
at
him that.
7.
You don't
So-
even tell him that.
so I will make a motion to appoint Aaron Bradley and Ben Zoll to the Select
Second.
Board Finance Committee for a 1-year term.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 It's
Can we
unanimous. Select Board Policy Committee. Any interest in Select Board Policy Committee?
So I did that last year as well. It's really the only committee that I love. Not gonna lie, y'all. It's my heart and soul, and I only got to have 1 meeting with Arthur last year, and I would like to have more than 1 meeting this year. So I would like to do that again, and I would welcome anyone to join me.
Interest in Select Board?
I might.
All right,
All right.
all right.
I might join you.
Hey, you
somebody
got
else
out your
wants
red
to.
pen on that last one. I liked
right.
it.
You want a motion?
Any other
Oh,
interest?
you make the motion? Oh, sorry.
No, any other interest? All right, let's, I think we're ready for a motion. Rich.
I'll make a motion to appoint Erin Bradley and Roxanne Musto to the Select Board Policy Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. The next one is the
Affordable
trustees of the
Housing Trust.
Affordable Housing Trust.
I was on that last year, and I messed up all of their meetings because I was in school.
Okay.
And so they can only meet at night, and I did not do a good job. So I would like to remove myself from that committee because I did not help them.
Interest in the Affordable Housing Trust meeting.
I would be interested in the
Mr.
affordable.
Zoll has interest. Any other interest?
I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Zoll to the sorry, anyone else? I'm just trying to get us through this agenda.
Yeah, no, you're doing great, Richard.
Tim took an hour and 20 minutes.
Well, okay, but it was important.
Yeah. So we want a motion?
Yeah, go ahead,
I'll make
please,
a-
yeah, please, don't,
I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Zoll.
slow down now.
I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Zoll to the Affordable Housing Trust.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Capital Improvement Planning Committee.
Well, I've been there for 7 years, and I'm currently the chair. I think it might be a good idea if I could to stay there.
Any other interest?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Richard Wells to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee.
I will second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Master Plan Implementation Committee.
I'm on that now. I'd like to stay on since we've been working on things.
I'd like to, sorry, is there anybody
No?
else?
Any other
I was
interest?
going to say, you making a move? Go ahead,
I
I'll
was. You
second.
wanna make
make
a
it.
move?
No, go ahead, you make it, I'll second
You
it.
move it.
I'll make a motion to appoint Roxanne Musto to the Master Plan Implementation Committee.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Unanimous. Moving on to the Milton Landing Committee.
I guess I better stay with this baby, too.
right.
My only point, Mr. Chair, Roxanne sat on that as well, and
Yeah, there are two
I'm
of
fine.
us
If she
on
wants to
that.
stay on it,
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that. Well, first off,
Yeah.
if I go back on
Yeah, I
it,
think we had 2 members.
we've always
on
had
this.
two,
There's one.
always had two.
There's-
So-
Sorry, I thought you were on it, not necessarily as a select board member, and then it carried over, so I thought that was,
No.
okay.
No, I think
My
we had
confusion.
2.
It
I
was
think we had 2.
Melinda and
select
I,
board
and
members.
then it was
Got
Roxanne.
it,
and-
okay.
Yeah,
We'll fix
and
that
you and
going
Katie for a while.
Oh,
too.
Katie, yeah, Katie, too, Katie.
So yeah, I'd like to stay on that.
All right, so any other interest? All right, I'll make a motion to appoint Richard Wells and Roxanne Musto to the Milton Landing Committee for a 1-year term.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Payment in lieu of taxes committee.
Who was on that?
Arthur was on that last year.
By himself?
Yes.
Is
We
there
have-
a
It's one select board member. Yes, we have 2 very committed and interested residents who are working on it. And I believe we have the town administrator on it, and I don't remember the other appointees, but
One of the member of the assessors.
the assessors, that's right. That's right.
I'll make a motion to appoint.
I mean, I actually have another idea about it, so I would love to talk to them about trying to go at it a different way.
Then you want to be on it.
I do.
I've been on it. And I think, and Michael's, you've been on it as well at some point.
I was
You were
on it before.
Unless,
I was in
unless one of
select
y'all
board.
want.
You on it before you were select?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to appoint Aaron
No.
Bradley.
Don't keep adding more on, come
I'll make a
on.
motion to appoint Aaron Bradley to the pilot committee.
I will second that.
We don't,
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Broadband Committee. I've been on this one for a while. I'm chairing it. As much as I'd like to get off committees, my sense is I should probably,
I agree. So I want to make a motion to
Yep.
appoint
Continue
Michael
on.
Zulus to the broadband committee.
I'll second.
motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And, let's see, that's that. School Building Committee, I'd probably say the same thing on that.
You want a motion to stay on that one?
Yeah, I
All
think.
right, so I'll make a motion to appoint Mike, oh, sorry, anyone else? I'll make a motion to appoint Mike Zulus to the school building committee.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. MPEG, the Municipal Public Educational and Governmental Access, Inc., Board of Directors.
So I'm on that now. Wanted to stay on if possible.
I'll make a motion to appoint Roxanne Musto to MPEG committee.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Youth Task Force.
I'd be interested in, I don't know, is anybody currently serving on it though?
No,
Nope.
Nope.
no.
So as a dad, I would be happy to do that.
I'll make a motion to appoint Ben Zoll to the youth task force.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Climate Action Planning Committee. Now, on this one, we could, we have the possibility of appointing a designee if we want. Or we could appoint.
Wanna
I
defer?
think we have one appointment.
I'm not taking any more committees.
Yeah, I think we have one appointment, or we could,
No,
or we had a number of good applicants.
Oh,
I'm
right.
with that.
Oh,
That's why
right.
I'm with the designee. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
That would be the direction that I would go in. So maybe we, unless you
Table
want
it?
to have it, Roxanne, or, oh,
Don't
no.
add another one.
No, yeah.
No, but I'm just saying, maybe we have to have the name, like, we could look at the
Yes,
name for next
absolutely.
time.
Let's table it and relook at the applications and defer that one. All right.
Is that a motion to table?
No, we don't need to.
No, we don't
We don't
have
need
to.
to. All right, we're done with item, that was very good. Thank you, everyone. We're done with item 14.
15.
And now we're on to item 15, which is discussion approval of committee appointments.
No.
No.
Town administrator?
Town administrator's evaluation form.
Well, wait a minute, where did I go? Did I skip something? It's not on here?
Did you flip
Did
it?
you print the wrong one?
Is there just not a motion on it, or?
No.
No, it's up
No,
for.
he's got a separate thing.
I was looking at the motions as opposed to the, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at the agenda.
The agenda, the actual agenda. So let's see, what did we get off here?
Number 15,
So
discussion
14
approval,
was,
all the peoples.
oh, okay, 15, yeah, so that's not on here. Okay. All right, item 15, town administrators evaluation form process and timeline. So each of you received in the packet our performance evaluation, the form, and an outline of the process. This is the process that we've used before, and it's a process that by contract we should complete by June 30th, and we have time to do it. We just each need to do two things. One, we need to have a reviewer who would consolidate the comments for presentation to Mr. Milano and the board, and there'd be the comments from each of us in filling out this, and Mr. Milano's comments, and then present them to the board. So that's one, and then two, we would need to do this probably by our second meeting in June, which is the 23rd or the 27th. That'll give us a little bit of time. So the question is, do we want to do it? I think it's a good idea since it's in his contract and we should. And then the question is, who wants to be and who can be the reviewer? Usually in the past, it's been the immediate past chair, but that doesn't really work here.
Mr. Chair, quick question.
Mr.
How many months are you in the position?
9 months, well, no, sorry, I started in September. This would be 9 months to June 30th.
And this would be
September to
your
June.
first,
Correct.
right?
And it's in his contract to do it now.
It is in the contract to do it
Yeah.
now?
Yes.
Okay.
It is awkward timing.
Yeah.
With the election, and it's just always never quite perfect.
So, Mr. Chair, can I
Ms.
ask
Bradley.
thank you so much. Can I ask a question about the information that's coming in? You're just looking for somebody to aggregate that, correct?
Correct.
So aggregate it, not put any names to who said what, just put it all together
The procedure laid out
in
here.
that.
Sorry about
Okay.
that.
I have a lot of spare time right now, and I'm not really sure what to do with a lot of it. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. I walk around the house, and I'm like, I should do more because I don't have school to do. So I'd be happy to do that if folks would be okay with that. If not, I'm totally fine. Richard's laughing.
So we have a consensus that Ms. Bradley will serve as the reviewer under the performance evaluation process that we have. Any other comments or questions about the process? You see the process here. There is a timeline for presenting your evaluation form to the reviewer, and then the reviewer, Ms. Bradley, will consolidate, and we can discuss them and present them finally at our meeting on the 27th of June. So, any other comments or questions?
We don't need to vote on this?
No.
No.
As long as everyone agrees?
I agree.
All right. Item 16, now we're on item
Are you
16.
ready?
Discussion approval of committee appointments. First is the Climate Action Planning Committee.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a motion to approve the following committee appointments. Climate Action Planning Committee, Arthur Doyle Conservation Commission member, Maggie Oldfield Planning Board member, Master Plan Implementation Committee, Cheryl Tagayas Planning Board member, Open Space and Recreation Planning Committee, Meredith Hall Planning Board member, Capital Improvement Planning Committee, Jim Davis Planning Board member, Telecommunications Design Review Committee, Sean Fahey Planning Board member, Nick Gray reappointment, Milton Cultural Council, Meg Focarelli. The appointment of Chris Hayden, Consolidated Facilities Director, to the following committees: Animal Shelter Advisory Committee, Capital Improvement Planning Committee, Local Emergency Planning Committee, Milton Landing Committee, Airplane Noise Advisory Committee, the reappointment of Chris Hart. Massachusetts Port Authority, CAC, Chris Hart, reappointment. I think I got them all.
I'll
Need a s-
second
I
all
need a
that.
second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Fabulous. All right, so now, let me make sure that we are up to, hold on one sec. 17, item 17, discussion approval of pilot payment for Milton Academy in the amount of $210,000. Before we get to that, Ms. Bradley.
Thank you so much. I totally forgot something on the last one. So I just want folks to know that Roxanne, Ms. Musto, presented at the meeting that I was not able to attend, what came out from our committee. And as part of that is a new application procedure that not only committees and boards will partake in, but also the moderators, committees and boards will partake in. I want to especially thank Moderator Hiss for joining us at multiple meetings. I'm sorry, I forgot to do this earlier. For joining us at multiple meetings to make sure that our application process was open and fair to the public. So my whole point is to the public is to apply for all the committees. Just start applying so that we can see who's out there and who's interested in being reappointed. A lot of our committee members are coming up for reappointment or for vacancies at the end of June. I know that Mr. Milano's been trying to do that. So I just wanted to announce to folks that there's this wonderful new process. And if Ms. Musto would like to say something, I'm sorry I forgot to say something earlier, but I just want folks to know that it's out there and everybody should apply for everything, all the time.
The other thing, just to add to that, would be that for each thing that you apply for, it's a separate application. So, depending on what your interest may be and the way that you want to offer services. So there'll be separate applications for each thing that you'd like to apply for.
Great, and it's important, and I'm glad.
Thank you.
I'm
Sorry.
glad you both mentioned it. It's very important, and sometimes when we try to get through these things a little more quickly, those get lost, so we don't want to do that. So definitely jump in and raise your hand, and let's make sure that we don't move too fast through those things. So thank you for that. Item 17, discussion approval of pilot payment from Milton Academy in the amount of $210,000.
So, Mr. Chair, for the purpose of discussion, I want to make a motion to approve the donation. And I'm not going to call it the donation. I'm going to change the word to payment. The payment in the amount of I'm sorry, excuse me. I jumped that one, okay. I'll make a motion to approve the pilot payment from Milton Academy in the amount of $210,000.
Motion's been made.
A second?
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Quick question. What was
Mr.
last year's
Wells.
payment?
Last year's payment was, for the equivalent was $200,000 for the general fund. And so,
Go ahead, no, that was
Yeah.
just my question.
all right,
Go ahead.
so I will add that the
I
Milton
knew there'd be
Academy,
discussion.
the Milton Academy payment does not comport with our pilot policy. It does not reach the amount that they should pay, the minimum amount that they should pay under our pilot policy. But the pilot, there is no legal mandate for us to enforce the pilot policy that we have in place in the town. We can suggest and ask and request that they comply with the policy, but ultimately it is not mandatory. However, since 2019, the general fund payments from Milton Academy have increased 68%, which is very good. They've gone up from $125,000 in 2019 to $210,000 currently, which is a 68% increase, which is the right direction. And I think it's good news. The total payments that Milton Academy pays for the fire department, the police department, the teen center, the library, in addition to the general fund, have increased by 78% since 2019. And that's the overall contributions have increased from $140,000 since $250,000. So this is good news for the town. I think it's a great credit to Milton Academy that those increases have been made. And I think it's also a credit to our pilot committee that has worked over the last few years to increase those amounts. So thank you to Milton Academy for those increases, and we'll be talking, I'm sure the pilot committee will be talking to you in the coming months and years. Any other discussion?
Vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. All right, item 18.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the donation in the amount of $200 from the First Parish Church in Milton to the Milton Coalition.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Item 19, discussion of a memorial tribute for Marvin Gordon. So I will lead on this. Marvin Gordon passed away about a year and a half ago. He was someone who was a graduate of Milton High School, Harvard College, Harvard Business School, and he, after being in New York for a little while, moved back to Milton and spent the balance of his life here. He was a town meeting member. He was a school committee member. He was a member of he was a selectman at the time for 7 years. He was treasurer of Milton Hospital for 17 years. He held a governor-appointed seat on the Massachusetts Health and Education Finance Association. He played a key role in the construction and management of Pine Tree Brook and Fuller Village, and he was president of Fuller Village at the time of his passing. Mr. Gordon was a key and pivotal figure in this community for the last 50 years prior to his passing. So it seems, if this board agrees, that it would make sense to talk to Andrea Gordon, his spouse, who I've been in touch with, about what tribute the town might want to pay to Mr. Gordon for his contributions to this community for more than 50 years. So that's the preference. What I'm looking for is authorization of this board and someone else who may want to join me to discuss with Mrs. Gordon how what she would like to see.
I'll be happy to do that with
Okay.
you. I mean, I was friends with him for, God, from going back to when I was a union rep, and when you said this, I'm thinking to myself, well, if we had a harbor, we could have a sailboat race, because Marvin was an avid and talented sailor. I mean, he was many things, and the other thing is he also donated the land to where the new temple is housed today. And Marvin was a great source of advice to so many, as you know, in this. I mean, he was a pretty remarkable guy. So I think it's very fitting that we do this in his name. I mean, he gave back in so many ways and so many things, and he was a really successful man in his own right. I mean, he really was. And
All right,
So
you and
the
Richard.
consensus is that we'll get together with Ms. Gordon and determine what she thinks would be
Okay.
appropriate. All right, thank you for that. Item 20, citation honoring Fruit Center Marketplace's 50th anniversary.
I'll make a motion to approve the citation honoring the Fruit Center's 50th anniversry, which celebration, which they held this weekend.
Motion's been made and seconded. Do we have the citation? Or is that something
Lynn
we're
says
going to?
yes.
Working on it.
It's in the
Okay.
packet.
To be signed?
Okay.
To be signed, yes.
Okay, all right, all right, so motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Congratulations to Mike McNoser and his family.
Yes, absolutely. Item 21, discussion approval of application of the, so now we have some applications for the use of the gazebo. We should, these are probably.
Mr. Chairman, I'll do this, make this easy. I'm going to make a motion to approve applications from the Milton Parks and Recreation, the use of the town green and the Baron Hugo gazebo. There's a it's a Baron Hugo gazebo. And these are what they're for. NDS celebration for the Teen Center on June 6, 2023, rain date June 13, 2023, from 3 to 5 p.m. Application from the Milton Coalition, use of the town green and Hugo Barrow gazebo, NDS celebration for the Milton Youth Advocates for Change on June 20, 2023, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. I think that covers that motion.
Motion's been made
I'll second.
and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right. Item 23, liquor license
Mr.
applications.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve one-day liquor license applications. Mary May Binney, Wakefield Arboretum, 1465 Brush Hill Road. For the following: Dogwood Days Law Party, I think that's a lawn party. But if they want to have a law party, that's okay.
No such thing as a
Someone should
law
notify
party.
the chief or the Norfolk County Bar. Dogwood Days Lawn Party, June 3rd, 2023, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. I think they're serving already. The Garden Concert, June 7th, 2023, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The Wine, Cheese, and Trees Tour. I might go to that one. June 8th, 2023, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mr. Chair, can we have the retreat at one of these?
Right? I think that sounds great.
I'm sorry, that's in June, so no.
I'm only kidding.
Do a repeat in July.
That's it.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We are on, is that
Meeting minutes, 24.
24, all right, well, let me catch up. All right,
Okay.
item
I just know what time it is for you. I'm trying to
Well,
move.
yeah, we're moving, we're cooking now.
Now we are cooking.
Item 24, meeting minutes for April 4th, April 11th, April 18th, and April 28th.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve those meeting minutes, the 4th, the 11th, the 18th, and April 28th.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Wait. Does
oh.
Ben have to
Yeah, I think
abstain?
he has to
Oh, I
abstain. He has to abstain.
Except for the 28th.
All right,
Okay.
Yep.
so
Sorry.
we'll note Mr. Zoll's abstention for April 4th, April 11th, and April 18th. Is that okay, Lynn?
Yeah,
All right.
she
Got
thanked
it.
me.
Good. All right. Let's see, that's 24. Item 25, Town Administrator's Report.
Make it brief. No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
As this board knows, we've had some ins and outs over the past few weeks since we've convened in a regular meeting. So Joe Prondek's last day was a couple of weeks ago. Bill Ritchie's last day was April 30th. Chris Hayden joined last week as the facilities director. I know he's been out and about. Met with him today again, and he had just come back from visiting some more of his new buildings. So he's been out there seeing everything, getting the lay of the land. Our civil engineer position had been vacant for a while. Sky Barubi, a recent UMass Dartmouth grad, has accepted and will be starting in mid-June for that position. And also over the past few weeks, Jack Turner has started as the environmental coordinator replacing Mira Patel. And with the town election, Joanna McCarthy was elected as the town treasurer. She was there the next morning at 8 a.m. ready to work. And Joanna's been really a great it's just a great part of the team. She's dived right in. Not a lot of municipal finance experience, actually zero. So, but a lot of finance experience. So she's bringing that perspective. We had a long, good meeting with bond counsel today to just talk around debt and those issues. So, just appreciate what she's brought to that office since she started. A couple other items. DEI training for town staff is ongoing now in May and June. We did shut the building on April 27th in the afternoon for active shooter training. Thanks to the residents for understanding why we closed down, but Detective Simildoro and Lieutenant Caputo came over from the department, sat with town hall staff for a few hours, went around to every office explaining how different staffers can react and based on where they are in the building, what their office has to lend. So I think it was well received and hopefully is just entirely precautionary forever. Annual town reports are out. Thanks to Lynn for all of her hard work on getting those annual town reports out. I think they look great. And we've been distributing them to town meeting members, especially new ones who joined recently with the election. The MBTA is doing a sound study based for noise coming out of the Reedville station over in Hyde Park. They're looking for people to respond to a survey. We will send that out on the town website and on social media tomorrow. It was brought to our attention by actually John David Corey, so we'll make sure that gets out so people can respond. It's just a Google form, a few quick questions and answers if you are hearing noise coming out of that station overnight. And lastly, Memorial Day is coming up. Kevin Cook has organized Memorial Day activities. We'll have the flag raising at 10:45 at Town Hall, followed by a march over to the cemetery for the event over at the cemetery right at around 11 o'clock. Dan Yacarino, CB, and a resident of Milton will be doing the keynote address on Monday. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. Chair's report. So that was my leadoff on the chair's report was our Memorial Day observance. So we all should be here to the extent we are going to be here at 10:30 because we're marching. We're going to do the flag raising and the wreath, the placement of the wreaths, and then marching from 10:45 or thereabouts to 11, where we'll have the ceremony at the cemetery. So we should all be here to the extent we can at 10:30 on Monday. And we look forward to another great ceremony with our great Veterans Services Director, Mr. Cook, and with another great speaker that he's lined up as he does every year. So, let's see. Cheers. So I want to ask Ms. Bradley to make one announcement under the chair's report.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to wish, on behalf of, I'm sure, the entire Select Board, the Pierce 8th grade students that are heading off to Washington, D.C. tomorrow, a great trip and a safe trip. It's the first trip that's happened since COVID hit. So there's been a couple years where kids didn't get to go. And I'm so sorry, you guys, that didn't get to go. Man. Maybe you ask your parents to bring you to DC this summer. But anyways, it's going to be a great trip, and I hope that all those kids learn a lot and remember and learn about our democracy. And so thank you to all those that are volunteering their time to go down to DC, and please be safe. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thanks.
Item 27, public comment response.
the public comment response. I will add, there was one comment about, from one of the commenters about the school building committee, all the meetings violated the open meeting law. Wasn't quite accurate. There were some meetings in 2020 and 21 where there was a discussion both of private land and of publicly owned land. The AG's office said that the publicly owned land meetings should have been public, so that those meetings should have been separated. But all of those minutes were produced last October. So everything's been produced, everything's been public, so but for that piece of the meetings, all of those things have been taken care of. Anything else on public comment response? Item 28, future meeting dates. I think we're set on meetings on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. And so that will take us to Tuesday the 13th. Is that the next meeting? All right. Tuesday the 13th, Tuesday the 27th, and Tuesday, July 11th. And then we added, we penciled in the 29th Saturday for retreat, and we'll, more to come on that. All right, item 29, executive session. So,
You gonna make a motion?
yeah.
Okay.
So pursuant to Chapter 38, Section 21A3, I'll move to enter into executive session to discuss litigation strategy against the MBTA related to the condition of the stairs at the MBTA station at Adams Street. Based on my belief that discussion of this matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Select Board, the Select Board will return to open session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? This will be a roll call vote. Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And Mr. Zulish, yes. And I'll make a motion to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining units, Milton Clerical Unit of the Southeastern Public Employees Association, Milton Professional Management Association, Milton Public Employee Association, Milton Firefighters Local 116, Milton Police Association, and Milton Superior Officers. Based on my belief that discussion of this matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the Select Board. Again, the Select Board will return to open session after these executive sessions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, this will be a roll call vote. Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
Mr. Zulish, yes. Okay, so we're going to go into executive session. We will come out of executive session for those who are following for item 31 on our agenda, which is discussion approval of memorandum of agreement with the Milton Public Employee Association from July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. So we're going into executive session, and we will be back as quickly as we can. Thank you. Turning to the May 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Milton Select Board for item 31, discussion approval memorandum of agreement with the Milton Public Employee Association from July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. Mr. Milano.
Sure. So we have before you an MOA covering the current fiscal year and the next two with the Milton Public Employee Association, which represents employees in the cemetery, parks, consolidated facilities, and DPW departments. This agreement is 2% COLA over 3 years with a couple additional adjustments, in fiscals 24 and 25. It also increases by 2 days sick days for newer employees who were hired after July 1st of 2014. A little $200 increase to their clothing allowance. It also does secure some language for the town whereby some employees who do not show up to work may then try to work in overtime. We are preventing that from happening going forward. We've added Juneteenth to the list of holidays. This contract comes at the conclusion of lengthy negotiations over the past 18 months or so. So the bargaining unit did ratify it last week. Look to the select board for approval today, and we'll get working to get the retro payments out to the employees.
Comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agreement between the town of Milton and the Milton Public Employees Union, also known as the DPW Union, DPW and Cemetery.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Before we adjourn, Mr. Zoll.
Just wanted to, in the same spirit of wishing well to the 8th graders going to DC, wish the performers well at the Milton High School's performance of Mamma Mia, which is going to be coming up this weekend. Tickets are already sold out for Thursday, but as of this morning, there were still tickets available for the Friday and the 2 Saturday shows. And also wish the Pierce players luck at their Newsies, which is going to be the following weekend. I shouldn't say luck, I should say break a leg. I've
That's right.
been around theaters long enough to know that, but I hope that everyone breaks a leg.
Great.
Do you know how people get tickets? I think you should tell them.
I think if you go to the Milton High School website.
I know a lot about running things like this.
If you go to the Milton High School website, there's links there, and I don't know that the town page has a link to it, but I know the high school does.
Anything further? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Wells and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. We will return on June 13th, 2023, and we will hope to see you at our Memorial Day ceremonies this coming Monday. Thank you very much.